Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the Amanda Collins podcast. It's my honor to help you awaken to joy, be your greatest self, and live a life you love. I'm Amanda Collins. Each week, I'll share tips, practices, and rituals to help you feel the storehouse of joy inside. I'll answer your questions and talk with thought leaders from around the world about health, wealth, love, conscious living, and parenting. Are you ready to live your most fulfilled life? I am so honored to have James Knight here with us. James has been a certified Hana-somatic educator. He's an experienced registered yoga teacher and an integrative therapist for over 25 years. His passion is to inspire others into the path of self-mastery. With his combined experience as an intuitive body worker, a psychotherapist, and a movement educator, James has found a new way to combine the most progressive life-enhancing techniques into a seamless flow of breath and mindful movement. Gentle somatic yoga was born out of the years of exploring ways to connect with the deepest part of ourselves. James is based out of San Diego, California. However, spends much of his time traveling the world, facilitating teacher training certifications, workshops, and spiritual retreats. He also enjoys connecting with healing communities, designing sacred spaces, photography, painting, spending time with family, and being with his dog, Leela. James, we are so grateful to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thank you for having me, Amanda. It's my pleasure.
I have known and loved James for over a decade now.
I know, can you believe it? How much time has passed. It's incredible.
And James and I were just talking, it's always just been pure pleasure when we're together.
Absolutely. In fact, I feel it right now. I feel it right now. Every time I'm with you, Amanda, my field expands and all I feel is joy and light and freedom. So thank you for this invitation today. And I'm excited to see where this goes.
Me too. Me too. Well, I am so grateful. And, I would just love to start off with, would you just share like who you are and, what you would like to share of your journey with us?
My journey as being on a spiritual path or in my career or?
Yeah, like on your spiritual, like maybe a little integration of just whatever you feel called. And really that what has brought you into pleasure,
Okay.
that journey to that.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate. I feel blessed because at a very early age, when I was 20 years old, I had two significant experiences that really set the tone for the rest of my life. And the first one was being at a Vipassana meditation retreat. And, at that point, I had zero experience with meditation. And it was, as I mentioned, it was a silent retreat. And I remember sitting there with a room full of maybe, 100 people and separated into men and women. I'm sitting there on my cushion and I was so angry for being there because of course I experienced my monkey mind going crazy and I was trying to follow the instructions, but my body was really experiencing a lot of pain. And so, being the Scorpio that I am, everything's about truth and passion and joy. And I just was really battling with my brain, with my mind thinking. And so I committed to hang in there. And on the fourth day, the biggest day where we were initiated into the Vipassana technique, I really felt like my knees were just going to explode. And I just went through this whole range of experiences emotionally, mostly anger, that I had put myself into this situation. So to summarize, what happened was after the hour and a half, I thought for sure that they're going to have to take me away in a stretcher. And because my knees were in so much pain. But the surprise to it was the meditation instruction finished and I was able to stand right up and I was pain-free. And that was an experience that was such a surprise to me. It really showed me how much, or it showed me the choice of how I define myself. whether it's mind or spirit. And the rest of the retreat, I experienced extreme expanded states of consciousness. Once I realized that I could control, um, almost like a TV channel, how I tune into myself and what I respond to. So that honestly was the first awakening that I had, which dissolved, and my whole entire being dissolved into bliss during that retreat. And for the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to be one with God, or one with the universe, one with source. And ever since then, that's where I choose to live, basically.
And you truly do, like, you embody this, and like just being in your presence, you can feel that. And I know everybody here with us right now can too.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. It's really a blessing. I mean, I look back at that time, and literally I experienced, once I went through that first stage of experiencing my body in pain and seeing how my mind had created that, literally once I passed that stage, my body felt like it dissolved into, in fact, in Sanskrit, we call it kalapas, a billion particles. I just felt like I evaporated into bliss. And it was honestly a feeling of oneness. And I'm able to describe that now using language because I'm a yoga teacher and a therapist. But this was so new to uh, my earth experience, and then the second one that I wanted to mention also, because I'd been raised Christian and a very kind and loving family, but I really didn't have an understanding of what my spirituality was. So the second thing that influenced me at an early age was going to a Native American ceremony with my cultural anthropology teacher. And we were the only white people of probably 200 Indians. And we were invited because of his status studying the Pomo Indians. And we were being very polite by sitting in the shadows of this roundhouse as we were witnessing and being respectful to the Native people. And once everybody had finished eating, the shaman walked directly up to me with two branches of bay leaves and asked me to pick two, and if I would be interested in starting the evening dance, which was this huge bonfire in this roundhouse. And the roof, there was an open space for the flames and smoke to go through. And I looked at my instructor and I'm like, can I do this? And he said, absolutely. And so the shaman said, trust me, you will remember, and I will show you. And so, Amanda, that was the second most significant experience that really started my path, because as I was barefoot on the earth, and the shaman had chosen maybe 4 or 5 other people, and the drums started and the chanting started, and all of a sudden I just had this sense of connection to the earth, connection to the people there. Oh, I'm getting chills as I'm talking about this.
Mm.
Just looking at the flame flickering on the faces of the people that were watching and chanting. And I just, again, around the same time as the Vipassana retreat, I just had this sense that I belong, that I'm connected to this larger system. In yoga, we call that union. And from both of those experiences, I knew that, it set true north. My inner GPS
Mm.
has always been set to knowing that we are one, that I am connected, and that all of the answers that I've ever had, and all the questions that I have, can be answered from within. And so that's been my guiding, my North Pole.
Mm.
That's my, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, I'm just listening to these profoundly beautiful stories. And I do feel that you may have many, many, many more, even
Yes.
just the journeys that we have shared together. Like,
Yes.
and it's almost like you are the alchemist, and um, so thank you so much for sharing those. You know, today, the interview, I know will have a life of its own, but really, this series is all about awakening to pleasure. And I mean, when when I thought of this, it's like you just came straight into my consciousness, because it's like you just seem to find pleasure in no matter what it is you're doing, no matter where it is you are. So, like, I think the first thing I'd love to ask you is, like, what is pleasure to you?
When you asked me for this, to participate in this interview, my whole being just lit up. So the first thing is a dedication to myself, to true north, which is my heart connection to my spirit. is that my body becomes filled with light and I feel joy. So Amanda, when you asked me to do this interview, that's how I felt. It's like an effervescence inside my body as a sensation that I know is a yes. And I call that riding the yes current. And that's how I
Mm.
live. That's how I live my life. Is like who, the people that I'm with, basically all relationships, including my relationship to food, to people, to my career, to, just being in the world. The way that I know something is right for me is that I literally feel pleasure through feeling light and joy. Like that's the best way I can describe it. That's how I know how I can make my next decision. So yeah, I feel like as human beings, we all have the capacity to have this own sensing system. And I
Mm.
believe that our natural state of being is well-being, peace, and joy. Like this
Mm.
is our birthright. This is how we were born. This is our innocent place, inside ourselves. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, being a movement educator and a therapist and doing a lot of personal work, it's natural for us as human beings to experience stresses from life. It's just inevitable. I don't even like to use the word positive and negative because I don't believe in that. I think it's all information. And at the same time, it's true, we react to our environment, whether it's emotionally, mentally, physically. And throughout our life, we believe that there's either perceived or real threats. And so our body stores that as memory, and our energy body stores that as memory. So, it's just natural to have these reflexes to stress in our life. So, but underneath the stress, underneath the defense structures, underneath the reactions is our state that never leaves us, which is pure joy, which is pure peace and well-being, which is pleasure. So when we break the defense structures back down and we can relieve ourselves of our belief systems that keep us trapped and the images that keep us trapped, from these reactions to stress, and we relax and we surrender to the sacred, the sacredness within, which is the heart, and then we unwind and we remember this natural state that I'm talking about. So yeah.
And I love that you say that because, it's like that innocence and that natural state because, as you well know, Patrick and Eve, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and it's like they're just all about play and joy. Like it's like nothing else exists. I might be like, "What would you like for dinner?" And they look at me as if like, "What are you talking about? Like we're just playing, we're having fun. Why are we worrying about something that's not even in this present moment that isn't of joy?" you know
Oh my
and they're
gosh.
like my teachers, like my gurus. It's like, you know, and it's not like we're saying that you have to be in this state of pure like joy and pleasure all the time, because of course, it's part of life that yin and yang to experience, but I think it's like having tools to bring you back into that place. As you said, if stresses come in and, like a circumstance or an email comes or a phone call comes in, it just wasn't the flow that we expected. And that might bring us away from our pleasure. And I think it's, having tools. So, like, what would you say, James, are some of the main tools that you use to allow you to be in that pleasure? If something comes in and,
Right.
takes things out of balance.
Right. Well, it's about choices, right? So, well, the first thing, that's why I started off with sharing about my meditation experience. And then after that, became my dedication to figure out, what are the tools that I can use. And so one of them is grounding, so to me, grounding is when I'm experiencing a stressful moment. Well, let me back up just a little bit. I think that for me, the definition of freedom is choice, and freedom is directly connected to pleasure and joy and peace and well-being. So us as human beings, I think that's what defines us as human beings, is that we can make a choice. So when I find myself in situations where there's information that I'm intentionally calling it information, because literally that's how I see the universe. It's not good or bad. It's information. So as information is coming in and I witness my body going into contraction, the first thing I do is I open my system. I recognize that I'm having a sensation, whether it's tight shoulders or shortness of breath or rapid breath, cold hands. There's all these symptoms, symptoms, signs that the body's going into a sympathetic nervous system response to stress. And so as soon as I recognize that, I own it, I accept it. Number one, I don't judge it. And I kind of look at my body as like, wow, well, that's interesting. This is curious. So I think that's the first step, is to be a witness and to go, wow, okay, there's something happening. There's
The
something
awareness.
happening.
Yeah.
The awareness. Yeah. And it shows up as sensation of pain, discomfort, or, and so then the first thing I do is, when I can, is to ground my energy. So for me, I open up the chakras of my feet and I connect with the earth. And this has taken me actually quite a few years to really master this, because I was really more in my head and more in my thinking body, for a lot of my life. So to ground down towards the earth literally means to open my energy body inside my physical body and connect with the earth, and then draw some of that energy up into my body, open my heart, relax my shoulders, take a deep breath, and just take a moment for myself to recenter, to kind of regroup, recalibrate. And then from there is to ask myself, is this true? Do I need, the sympathetic nervous system is flight or fight. So is it true that I'm really being threatened right now? Is my life in danger? And oftentimes it's no, it's not. So it's to kind of bring a little lightness to the situation. You know what I mean?
I love that.
Be the observer, be the witness, and look at it, and breathe and ground and open. And the choice is to come back to a place of love and acceptance. That's where the choice points comes in, and I believe that's where we're all, that's where we turn back to freedom. Yeah.
So beautiful. I was just like, when you first of all talk about that grounding, it's like, and just how you explained it, was like, I could just feel my body connecting with the earth. And as you were like just relaxing your shoulders, it's like I just went right there with you. And it's like, yeah, the physical body, the energetic body, the mental body, it's just like it brings that wholeness. And then when you feel safe, it's like, okay, is my life really in danger here? Do I really need to be in fight or flight right now? No. And it's just like right there, it's just giving yourself permission to come into the present moment.
Exactly. And it's creating space in the present moment. There actually might be threatening experiences as well. You could be, well, I won't even go into that because it's not necessary. But I mean, the interesting thing is that if I can create space for myself and I can be the observant, I can relax, that's the first step, because that just opened up a whole new world of possibilities of how I want to consciously respond. And it just happens to be my value system to return back to a state of pleasure as soon as possible. So I do. And people call it luck, because they witness my life. And I do some pretty amazing things right now. I'm connected to such incredible people, and I have so much love in my life. And I don't call it luck. It's a conscious decision. When that inner GPS is pointed towards true north, which is my heart center, it is a choice between love or fear, and I choose love.
Absolutely. And, I like to call it my divine flow. And I think when you really do live a life where you're like, it's choice, it's like 20% is what happens to us, and 80% is how we choose to be with the experiences. So if you choose to wake up and you ground, connect with your heart, connect with source, your higher self, and you consciously choose, like, this is how I'm going to choose to live my day, right? And if things arise, that aren't of your plan of just pure pleasure, you get to choose how you are with that experience. Like, am I going to let this, it's like I spill my tea, I, trip over this, it's like, or am I just going to breathe, recenter, reground, and like just set my intention for my day,
Exactly. Yeah. I was just, as you were talking, Amanda, I've had so much pleasure with you. It's interesting, isn't it, that certain relationships bring such that natural flow, there's such a natural resonance, a frequency that just, expands into the yes current. I call the
Mhm.
yes current. And I think you said something really important, which is setting intention, because that really does set up where our consciousness goes. Energy follows consciousness, and energy on its own is neutral until we put it somewhere, like it's there to use. So I really think that, you hit a key point, which I live in my life very intentionally, as I know you do too.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's definitely a key, as well as grounding. It's like, okay, what do I want out of this? Where am I going? Who am I today? And the truth is, for me, it can be, it's kind of ironic because, for example, I accept all of my emotions. Let's say I'm sad and I experience myself crying. Sometimes just the witness of crying, in the experience of accepting that, that's information as well. I know this might sound crazy, but I actually get excited that I'm actually having that emotion. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it stops my crying, like a tear starts rolling down my face, and all of a sudden, like, wow, what tears rolling down my face, and then all of a sudden I return back to joy again, or joy could create that tear on the face. And what I'm saying,
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's like, oh, I can actually feel. And I
yes,
think part of pleasure is allowing yourself to
yes,
go through if it was grief or sadness. And
yes,
I've shared this before. Sometimes, I'm on my morning run, and
yeah,
sometimes I've got tears rolling down my face of just pure joy, of just like, oh my goodness, I love life. I'm so grateful for God. And look at the trees. Oh my goodness, the river, this. Oh, I love life. And then sometimes I have tears rolling down my face because I'm crying. But it's just like there is a joy behind that, because it's like, wow, I
yeah,
can cry and I can just let
yes.
this move through me and not think I've got to stuff it down. And there's like a joy and pleasure just in that alone.
Exactly. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you because it's one that I don't have a lot with people. And it's the same thing with some of the other more challenging emotions like anger or jealousy or sadness. And for me at this point in my life, I just judge that in myself. I have the capacity. I'm a whole human being. A whole human being has these full ranges of experiences. So the fact that I can, and this is what I teach with my clients and my students as well, is that when we're having a human experience, and we have that intention to return back to love as soon as we can, and be in that choice point, in the meantime, we accept the experience fully, and there is a slight pleasure in it, because it means I love myself even when I'm angry. I love myself even when I'm jealous. I love myself even when I do something that's not necessarily pleasing to other people. That I have the capacity for all human experiences like everybody else. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, I do experience that. I'm going to allow myself to run this energy. And there is a slight pleasure, I think, because it's attached to acceptance without
Mm-hmm.
judgment.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I totally agree. And, I love, it's like, yeah, let's just own it. Yeah, we all get angry. We all can feel jealousy. And then that's where I think choosing to live consciously and not kind of then after you have those emotions, just like start projecting and going to blame or whatever you could do. Instead, be like, okay, so I'm feeling this right now. Like I'm feeling, let's just use jealousy, right?
Yeah.
I'm feeling jealous right now. And usually all the jealousy is somebody else is doing something that you don't believe is possible for you to experience or to have or to do. And it's really you just not thinking you're good enough, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
to be able to kind of like get a light and shine on it, be like, okay, what's really going on here? Okay, so I'm jealous of this. And it's because I don't think that I am good enough to have it or to experience it. And it's like, okay, let's just take a few steps back. I am enough. And if this is truly something in my heart and soul that feels right, well, let's just, turn this around. And what tools can I use to allow myself to realize my self-worth and my self-love, to
Mm.
open up to this that I don't believe that I'm good enough for. Does that make sense?
Well said. Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, you just brought back to, you were asking me about the tools that I use. And I think, and you're naming it right now, which is self-reflection. I mean, every single day I am reflecting on my words, my actions, my thoughts. And, sometimes I need a journal about it. Sometimes I need to talk to a friend. Sometimes I need to let out a scream. Sometimes I need to just sit down and take some deep breaths. And because of the field that I'm involved with, move as a movement educator and a yoga teacher, another a super important tool. And Amanda, I know that you practice yoga as well and other methods to release body stress, is like, if I can relax my body, if just by breathing and moving and creating some space physically, and the stress will leave sooner, and I can return back to that neutral state.
Mm-hmm.
Do you experience that as well?
Absolutely. And it's, it's scientifically proven now that everything is energy. It's all vibration, and that vibration that we carry. And if we as simply can just sit down and breathe and just shift our energy, or, it's like put on some fun music and dance it out, or,
Yeah,
just like,
yeah,
or even just take a bath. Whatever it is for you, and what it was for you yesterday and what it is today and what it is tomorrow could be slightly different. And it's just like feeling into
yes.
the moment. And that's where intuition comes in, and
Mm,
being connected,
mm,
grounded with your heart, with your higher self, because then
mm,
you can just, as James so beautifully said, ride that wave and be like, what do I need in this moment to shift me
yes.
back into pleasure?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well said. Exactly.
Woohoo!
Yeah, and it can be that easy. I mean, definitely. Um, I mean, Amanda, you're a mirror to me, because I know that you live in the same value system. So it's just, I enjoy, and it really just brings me so much um, satisfaction when I'm guiding a class or a retreat or something like that, and I'm watching people release their defense structures in the body and becoming more undefended. I call it transparency. And then when we all consciously choose to do that in community, then the other possibility through this sense of pleasure is we get to create our heart's desires. We get to create individually, we get to create together collectively. And that's what I like to help people remind people is that we are the creators of our life, and we can live in this state. it's
Mm,
it's sustainable, but we do also have to continually ask ourselves, is this true? Am I aligned with, am I living in soul alignment? I really think that's a huge part of it. For me, is am I living in soul alignment? Am I living with my authentic message to the world?
mm.
And so that's been a journey for me, and I've arrived, and I'm here, and it's something I love to share. So thank you for inviting me to talk about it.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. And I love how you put it. It's like your true north, your
Hmm.
internal compass, and it's like, and I love that you say that, you said like self-reflection and just stillness. And I think part of our pleasure is giving ourselves that space for introspection and for self-realization, and checking that internal compass, because it could be like, okay, something that's a yes, 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 right, and it feels really good and you're riding that wave, and then all of a sudden one day it no longer feels like a yes. And
Mm,
that's when you're really like tapped in with, I suppose, your own internal compass. And then, as James so beautifully put it, collectively, sometimes that yes shifts into a no. So, what could have been complete alignment for a while was, or, it's like friends come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and it's like, it's really trusting in that ebb of flow of your true yes or your true no. And that's where I think, meditation, time for reflection, journaling, or even like a yoga class where you get to kind of go to that edge, whether it's holding a pose for a while or just stretching yourself beyond a little bit more. And then you go into Shavasana and it's just like, it's like the let go, the surrender, So I think it's like this internal dialogue um, with self that allows you again to stay in that true north. Would you agree, James?
absolutely, yes, absolutely. And what's not being said is, what we haven't talked about is the intuition. I think that as we practice, because it is a practice,
Mm,
definitely, this is all about a practice, everything, every day, every breath, is that as we center, as we ground, as we connect, then our intuition, our awareness increases, and we can feel and sense. For me, portal is my body. That's how I know my true north, because my body responds. And so through enhanced awareness, through practicing a lifestyle that allows me to build upon my awareness, then my intuition increases. So it's I guess it's both, isn't it? It's the body.
Mm.
For me, it's the experience through the body that allows me to confirm I'm living in my yes. And then, but it's also a direct relationship with my consciousness, my heart, my spirit. And it's like, that's the two-way communication. It's infinite. It goes, now we're talking about consciousness. So
Mm.
I mean, so for me, yeah, it's like the intuition, paying attention to that. And when I'm stressed, when my body's feeling tight and I'm feeling that no, or that contracted state in my body where I might feel, all those symptoms of, like I said, lack of breath or cold, clammy hands, or just not feeling comfortable. Once I create the space and I choose to create space, then that's when I can listen to my intuition. That's when I can hear my heart messages. And that really is the GPS, I think,
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? It's the
Yeah.
heart. Is
Yeah.
is that higher sense of, a higher self sense of connection with the larger self, capital S, meaning connected to source,
I love that. So
right?
beautiful. And, being in your presence, and I think even everybody can feel it now. It's just like, I love it. You say you feel it through your body, but it's just like, when you have conversation with you can just feel that you're feeling like every word, every molecule, every energy field.
Mm,
And
mm,
a really good gauge for me is if I ever notice or feel myself getting kind of rigid, it's got to be this way. And the minute I get that way, I just like, oh my goodness, like right away, I know I'm not in this divine flow. And,
yes.
one tool that I just use is I just stop.
Mm,
I take a
mm,
breath and I just imagine this beautiful
mm,
waterfall just pouring over me. And it's
mm,
just like washing away any of that rigidity or just anything that I'm like trying to control or hold on to. And I'm just like, and it just shifts everything right away. So I
nice.
think I love hearing about your practices and your tools. And I think it comes down to breath or just a visualization that you have or the barometer. For me, it's like if I notice I'm getting rigid,
Mhm.
and then the second I shift that, it's just like anything that I was getting rigid about, it just starts to flow and things start to flow.
Hmm. You make a good point. As listening to you, just reflecting what I'm hearing you say is that it could be, the inner GPS could be different for each person. Like the portal for me knowing a yes is through my body. As we're sitting here talking, me and you, Amanda, right now, my body honestly has been in a continuous state of like effervescence. Like literally the hairs on my skin have been standing up because the vibration of this conversation is so meaningful to me and connecting with you. And I love you so much. And I love the work
And I love you so much.
Oh my gosh. You know, so literally I'm sitting here and my whole body's in a yes state, and so for me, that's how I feel it.
Mm,
That's how I know. And because we're all different in the way that we learn and grow, and I just always like to encourage people to find how their inner yes
mm,
expresses as well.
mm. So beautiful. I know. And for me, it's all hard. It's like I feel like that expanded, like right now, having this conversation, being excited about having this conversation. It's just full expansion. My heart is like full wide open. It's like fireworks coming out of it. And like that. And then it's like I feel my energy field like expanding,
Yes.
expanding because it feels safe
Yes.
and it feels
Yes.
joyful. But if at any time I feel restricted or I don't feel safe, I just
Yes.
like, oh, it feels like it's coming in, it's coming in. It's like
Yes.
it's the heart. It's not that my heart closes because I choose for it to be
Yes.
open no matter what the experience is. But there's just that different feeling when it's just pure pleasure. It's like, oh,
Yeah. You know what I just recognized right now as you said that is like, it's a question. I'll have a question, and even to the people listening to this interview, is pleasure a process and a discovery and a choice of self-love?
Mm,
Like, for example, what if we can't, what if we, I don't want to use that word. What if we're in a situation where we have information called stress coming into our life, and we're finding ourselves in this choice point. Sometimes we're not able to have the capacity to make that choice point. It might be like the choice point might be out of self-love. I need to get out of the situation right
Mm.
now. I need to take a break. If you're having a discussion, you're having a confrontation with a friend or a loved one, and it's getting heated and you're not making progress, self-love is to make the choice, you know what, I'm not in my ground. I'm not able to come back to that neutral place. So I'm going to choose out of self-love, out of preservation, to remove myself from the situation so that I can find my ground. And it's not always quick. It could be an hour, it could be 2 hours, it could be 3 days. But I think the key word is, self-reflection, recognizing I'm in this state, I'm aware, and I'm loving myself enough so that I can return back to my ground. I can return back to neutral so that I can respond from a heart space, which that is the most pleasurable state, is when we can respond from the heart space. But sometimes we do need those boundaries, and we do need that time to recalibrate, and there's no judgment about that.
Absolutely.
For me.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
what's in the highest good for one is always in the highest good for the other, right? So it's kind of
Well said.
so beautiful. So what would you say are the top things um that you like love to experience that just truly bring you pleasure?
Oh my gosh. Amanda. Oh my goodness. Let me tune into that for a second. One of my highest values that brings me pleasure is relationship. And for the viewers that are listening, I mean, they don't know us, or they don't know me maybe. It's choosing my relationships, and I derive so much pleasure when I'm in this flow, like where you and I are at right now, because I feel like this is something for me personally. My personal experience is that this is what I'm going to take with me when I leave this physical body, is my experience of relationship and consciousness. So I'm very careful and very mindful of how I choose my relationships. And so I think that really that's one of my greatest pleasures, is when I am in that flow, when I do have that resonance with somebody like I have with you, Amanda. And the second is
With
being,
you.
oh, thank you. Oh, it feels so good.
Oh.
And the second source of pleasure for me is to be alone in nature. That's where I really recharge. Probably the highest is when I'm alone and I'm just witnessing. Like, for example, I just got back from Canada. I was doing a yoga tour there, and I was in so many beautiful places, witnessing the forest and the rivers. And I had one experience with the bald eagles, and just to be alone and to be the observer and to feel myself connected, that that interconnectedness, that sense of pleasure. Whoa, like, talk about chills all over my body right now. It's from that place of stillness that I derive incredible amounts of energy exchange.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, and I mean, I can just relate, obviously, just connection. This is just blissful, having
Yeah.
this conversation, like maybe be beyond pleasure bliss. And then,
Yeah.
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 And then
Yeah.
connection to nature. I mean, it's just like
Oh my
trees and
gosh.
flowers
To
and
witness
trees.
the miracle of like sun reflecting off the water, or
Mm,
a tree that's growing, new flowers. I was witnessing some dogwoods that were just blowing my mind. Some flowers,
mm,
dogwood tree. And another source, the third source of pleasure is movement. And
mm,
when as a teacher with general somatic yoga, it brings me so much pleasure to witness other people letting go. Like, that's one of my passions, is to provide experiences and spaces, because some of us, we need the helpful hand. Sometimes, when we get stuck, what drives me pleasure is watching other people have pleasure. And so,
mhm,
when people drop their defense structures and they're allowed to their self to experience that sense of peace and calm, as a teacher, as a facilitator, and I know, Amanda, you know what I mean, it's like, as a person releases into that, and then I witness also in a group setting where everybody releases together, that is ecstasy. That is like
yeah.
pure pleasure,
Hmm.
because then we're all free together, and we remember we can be in the moment together in this
Absolutely.
state.
Yeah.
And that is ecstasy for
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. I mean, it's from what I'm hearing from you is being of service and living your dharma, your purpose, your gifts. And it brings you that place of bliss when you know that you can be of service in this way and use your gifts and create, kind of facilitate healing in people's lives and alignment and them to be in their joy too.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that place, kind of returning back to part of our conversation, when we're in that place of oneness, really oneness, and we join in that place of heart, then the capacity to create expands.
Mm.
And I think that's really, I guess that's the fourth thing is this co-creative act. And Amanda, you and I have been working on projects together, and I mean, talk about pleasure, because there's certain things that I can do that I can't just do on my own. And you know what I mean? Like I can experience a lot of self-pleasure. And when I connect with another person that's in that place as well, and we could create something together, then our capacity expands when we're in this yes current.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just like soul family,
Yes.
Soul agreements. Let's dance through life in joy together. I love that. And I love that James was like, hey, let's just ask the question. So from James and I, we would love to hear from you about what it is that brings you pleasure, that brings you back into pleasure. We would love to hear from you about that. James, is there something that you would love to leave us with? Just like I know, I mean, I would love to just be here for hours, weeks, days, months, just chatting. But like, last few words of wisdom that you would love to leave us with, in relation to your pleasure and the expression of it in the world.
Whew. Wow. It's my intention is that this recording will touch people's hearts, and my invitation is to be dedicated to loving yourself by allowing yourself to relax and create relationships and home environments and activities that will allow you to just drop into stillness and drop into that place where there's space, and ask yourself, create the intention to return back to your inner GPS, as each person's GPS will be different, and just let go, trust, like open your heart, trust, allow. I've really been enjoying this word, allow the energies to come in, allow your higher self to connect so that you can listen and respond from a place of just pure joy, so that's my invitation is to set the intention and to know it's a practice, and to accept that we are whole beings and we're not perfect. This is a practice. And so that's my love and my blessing to each one listening is that we practice together. When we each choose this individually and we come together as a collective, then we raise the vibration of the planet and we move into unity consciousness. And that's what I believe we're here to do right now, individually and collectively, is to move out of the paradigm of separation and back into a knowing and an experience of unity consciousness.
Thanks, beloveds, for joining us today. Please come over to themandacons.com to continue the conversation and get access to all my podcasts, blogs, and videos. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please subscribe to the Amanda Cons podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Feel free to pass this podcast on to your friends. That helps us get incredible guests to share their secrets for an inspired and joyful life. If you want more great resources, come over to amandacons.com and join my mailing list for all my latest content. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time,